Women and men are affected differently by trade policies. This is due in part to social customs as well as disparities over the control of resources. These factors represent a chronic comparative disadvantage in all parts of the world. Women produce half of the world's food, yet they are typically concentrated in small land holdings, and they till but do not own the land, and that may be their only source of food.
Women operate most small businesses and will continue to do so in these days of the rapidly growing services industries, where they have a comparative advantage. Today, I see the rapid growth of trade in services driven by the new technologies, affording women the opportunity to commercialize skill sets which come naturally to them through their traditional socialization: nursing, teaching, shopkeeping, hospitality, just to name a few. And these are the professions, we are told, as we move now toward the second decade in this 21st century, these are the professions which are becoming the frontline ones. So that in barely 2 generations, women have surged ahead at a pace unknown in the past.
For those of us who've been around for some time with this whole gender agenda, we wonder why after 20, 30 years, particularly from a corporate and business sector, we've been driving this and doing more and more things and thinking up more creative ways to drive female participation, particularly in more senior echelons in business. And yet, sitting today in 2010, we're a bit disappointed with the results that are emerging out of all of these efforts. And so you have to sit back and wonder why, from a business perspective, it is proving so difficult to get women to go up in more meaningful numbers up the echelons of corporate firms such as ours, ArcelorMittal Group. And in my mind, the single biggest inhibitor at this point is mindset. We've somehow developed a way of thinking that posits males to be the default setting and women to be a slight variant of that. And I think we need to actually be quite candid about the fact that today's corporate sector is not serving the needs of women.
What does the multilateral trading system do concretely? It's about regulation. It's about regulating this trade opening through rules, but rules that are based on principles of non-discrimination, of transparency, of predictability. That is what the multilateral trading system is about. The impact of this trade opening is not the same on men and women. It doesn't impact both men and women in the same way, because they will not have the same access to the trade opportunities that are being created. And I think that is one of the key points we need to work on. How can we promote, how can we encourage an equal access to the trade opportunities, access and control over resources? That is a factor that has been impeding women participation into trade. But also business skills, education more broadly. And then women are less involved in business networks than men in general.
To level the playing fields, human rights law is of great guidance. Specifically, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, sets the legal ground to promote and protect the rights of women in all spheres, including the economic field. To do so, human rights law requires states to take positive measures in order to attain substantive and not merely formal equality between women and men. These principles and responsibilities also apply to intergovernmental organizations. In this perspective, an international trade regime can and should incorporate all human rights, including the rights of women, and accommodate their special needs, as well as take full advantage of their knowledge and of their skills. Progress must not merely be measured and assessed in terms of economic growth and volume of exchange of goods and services, but also in terms of the impact such trade has on those who live at the margins of the global market and have no control over the invisible hands that shape their livelihoods.
Women bring their own perspective to the development process, and without it, the whole would be impoverished. I say this to people all of the time. It is not about being better than men. It is about balance. Now, among the priorities for action going forward, I think must be recognition of the need to socialize our boys to accommodate change and to learn to make non-traditional choices, just as women and girls have had to do, if the upcoming generation is to be expected to bring balance in an era of social turbulence.
Trade cannot deliver the economic empowerment and the development I referred to earlier in isolation. That cannot happen. We need accompanying policies, and those accompanying policies are multifaceted policy. You need to put in place, yes, gender mainstreaming, but also the right infrastructure, the right education policies in place for trade to be able to deliver this development that the multilateral trading system is seeking. We need some policy coherence at national and global level, but it starts at national level. We need to promote coherence between trade, health, education, so that they all contribute in a harmonious way to the economic and development that we are looking for women. In Rwanda today, gender is mainstream at all levels, at national, but district and decentralized level, district sector level, in terms of the resources that are being allocated to groups of women, but also looking at those particular barriers women are faced with. Is it a question of access to credit? Is it a question of ownership over land? Is it another question? Is it a question of education? Then those specific barriers that come in the way between women and the trade and business opportunities, those specific barriers are being targeted. And in Rwanda, we've started seeing the results of it. What can WTO members do? Few ideas. What can they do to encourage enabling conditions for women economic empowerment? I think at global level, members can collectively continue to improve on the rules. The more development friendly, the more women friendly those rules will be. Distortions in agriculture, in trade in agriculture, are distortions that are much more harmful to women than they are to men. Distortions in few industrial sectors, such as textiles and few other sectors that are big sources of employment for women, those distortions are much more harmful to women than they are to men. So I think improving on the multilateral rules to make them more development friendly, it is a contribution to make them more women friendly.